You are 10 years old. You are sitting in an office at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios in Culver City, California. The year is 1942. A man you've never met is looking at your face. Not at you. At your face. He's examining the bone structure the way a jeweler examines a stone before deciding how to cut it. He checks your teeth. He checks your hairline. He measures the distance between your eyes, which are violet, an ocular anomaly so rare that fewer than 600 documented cases exist in medical literature. He also notices a genetic mutation, distichiasis, a double row of eyelashes. It makes your eyes look permanently framed, like someone already did the post-production. The man signs a contract with your mother, not with you. You're 10. You don't sign anything. The contract says MGM will pay you $100 a week. In exchange, MGM owns your image, your schedule, your public appearances, your diet, and the right to decide who you are for the next 7 years, renewable at their discretion. You are not an actress. You are inventory. SKU number pending. Shelf life, unknown. Your name is Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor. And for the next 69 years, the world will put a price tag on every single thing that happens to you. Your beauty, your talent, your marriages, your illnesses, your grief, your addictions, your recovery, and your death. Every moment of your life will have a dollar amount attached to it. The higher the suffering, the higher the price. You are the most expensive woman on earth, and no one ever tells you where to send the invoice. MGM in the 1940s is not a movie studio. It's a factory. The assembly line produces 20 to 30 films a year. The raw materials are children. Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, Margaret O'Brien, you. Human products trained in acting, singing, dancing, elocution, horseback riding, and the single most important skill in Hollywood, the ability to cry on command within 3 seconds of the director saying action. You learn this at 11. A director, Clarence Brown, shooting National Velvet, needs tears from you in a scene where your horse is injured. You can't produce them. The assistant director takes you aside and whispers, "Your father just died." You cry. They get the shot. Your father is fine. He's at home in Bel Air. But something in your brain registers. Grief is a performance tool. File that away, you'll need it. National Velvet makes $4 million at the box office in 1944. Your salary is still $100 a week. You're 12. The studio clears a profit margin on you that would make a pharmaceutical company blush. Meanwhile, you watch what the factory does to its other products. Judy Garland, 5 years older than you, is on a chemical rotation prescribed by the studio doctor, amphetamines to lose weight, barbiturates to sleep, more amphetamines to wake up. She's 16 when they start. By 20, she's addicted. By 30, she's unemployable. By 47, she's dead in a London bathroom with enough secobarbital in her blood to stop a horse's heart. You see this? You're a child, but you see it. You understand something that takes most people decades to learn. The factory doesn't care if the product breaks. The factory cares if the product sells, and when it stops selling, the factory writes it off and starts manufacturing the next one. The question is whether you'll let them do it to you. The answer will take 50 years. Let's skip ahead. Not because the 1950s aren't important. They are. 3 marriages, 2 children, an Oscar for Butterfield 8 that you call a doorstop because you know they gave it to you out of pity after you nearly died. But the real story starts in 1960, in Rome, on the set of a movie called Cleopatra. The production is cursed from day one. The original budget is $2 million. By the time it wraps, the final cost will be $44 million, and adjusted for inflation, one of the most expensive films ever made. The director is fired and replaced. The location moves from London to Rome. The script is rewritten 17 times. Elizabeth Taylor gets pneumonia so severe that her heart stops on the operating table. They perform an emergency tracheotomy in a London hospital. A doctor cuts a hole in your throat to keep you breathing. You are clinically dead for approximately 5 minutes. You come back, and this is where the economics of Elizabeth Taylor become something no spreadsheet can explain. Before the tracheotomy, America hates you. 2 years earlier, you stole Eddie Fisher from Debbie Reynolds, America's sweetheart, the girl next door, the woman Eddie married when they were all best friends together. You, Eddie, Debbie, and Mike Todd, a foursome of Hollywood royalty. Then Todd died in a plane crash. The plane was called Lucky Liz, because irony is the universe's only reliable screenwriter, and within a year you're dating Eddie. Debbie is devastated. America sides with Debbie. The Vatican issues a public statement calling you a woman of erotic vagrancy. You are 27 years old, and the Catholic Church has officially weighed in on your love life. Then you die on an operating table and come back with a scar on your throat, and suddenly America loves you again. Not because they forgive you, because they almost lost you. And the thing about products is that scarcity increases value. A limited edition Elizabeth Taylor, one who has survived death, who carries a scar like a badge of combat, is worth more than the mass-produced version. Your agent, knowing this, renegotiates your Cleopatra contract. The new number, $1 million, against 10% of gross. You are the first actress in the history of cinema to command $1 million salary. The studio screams, the studio pays, because the alternative is making Cleopatra without Cleopatra, and that's not a movie. That's an expensive screensaver. $1 million. For context, the average American household income in 1961 is $5,700. Your salary for one film is 175 years of someone else's life. And here's the part they never tell you about breaking the price barrier. Once you prove a woman can be worth $1 million, every man in the industry spends the next 30 years trying to figure out how to make sure it never happens again. By the mid-1970s, your jewelry collection is appraised at approximately $50 million. Let's inventory the highlights. The Krupp diamond, 33.19 carats, an Acer-cut white diamond previously owned by Vera Krupp, wife of the German industrialist, whose family supplied weapons to the Nazi regime. You buy it at auction in 1968 for $305,000. When asked if it bothers you to wear a diamond once owned by a Nazi's wife, you say, "When it sits on my finger, that's all anyone needs to know about where the power went." It's the most efficient act of historical redistribution since the Allies dismantled IG Farben. The Taylor Burton diamond, 69.42 carats. A pear-shaped stone originally cut from a 241-carat rough diamond found in the Premier mine in South Africa. Richard Burton buys it for you in 1969 for $1.1 million after losing the initial auction to Cartier, then buying it from Cartier the next day at a markup. You wear it on a necklace because it's too heavy for a ring. When you walk into a room wearing this diamond, the room reorganizes around you. It's not vanity, it's gravity. Leporo, the size of a pigeon egg, found in the Gulf of Panama in the 1500s. Previously owned by Mary I of England, every Spanish queen for 2 centuries, and Joseph Bonaparte. Burton buys it for you at auction in 1969 for $37,000. Your Pekingese puppy chews on it once. You find it in the dog's mouth, intact. Not even nature can damage your assets. But here's what the appraisals don't tell you. Every piece corresponds to a moment. The Krupp comes during the first Burton marriage, the spectacular one, the one where you drink together, fight on yachts, make 11 movies, and break each other like expensive glass. The Taylor Burton comes 6 months later, when the drinking is getting worse and the diamonds are getting bigger, which is not a coincidence. The Peregrina comes at the peak, the absolute summit of Taylor Burton excess, and within 5 years you'll be divorced, remarried, divorced again, and sitting in a Senate wife's chair in Virginia, wondering how a woman who owned La Peregrina ended up at a fundraiser for the Middleburg Volunteer Fire Department. The jewelry isn't decoration, it's a ledger. Each stone is an entry. Date of acquisition, the moment something broke. Carat weight, proportional to the damage. Cut, how cleanly the wound was made. $50 million of geological evidence that love in your life has always come with a receipt. We need to talk about Richard Burton. Not because he's your greatest love, though he is, but because he's the proof of concept for the central thesis of your life. The more it hurts, the more it's worth. You meet him on the Cleopatra set in Rome. He's Welsh, Shakespearean trained, handsome in the way that a cliff face is handsome, all edges and weather damage. He's also an alcoholic. Not a charming drunk alcoholic. A 3 bottles of vodka before noon alcoholic. A man who reads Dylan Thomas at 2 a.m. and throws furniture at 4 a.m. He once said that the only drink he didn't like was the one after the one that made him pass out. You fall in love with him immediately. This makes perfect sense if you understand your operating system. You were raised in a factory that controlled everything. Your food, your schedule, your relationships, your tears. Burton is the first thing in your life that is completely uncontrollable. He's chaos in a tailored suit, and chaos for someone who grew up on an assembly line feels like freedom. You marry him in 1964. You divorce him in 1974. You remarry him in 1975. You divorce him again in 1976. Total duration, 10 years. 11 films together, an estimated combined alcohol consumption that could float a small navy, and a love so operatic that the actual paparazzi covering you in Rome needed to hire additional photographers because one crew couldn't keep up. The world calls you a mess. Hollywood calls you a liability. The tabloids call you Burton's weakness, and he calls you his strength, and neither version is accurate, because the truth is simpler, and worse. You are two extraordinarily talented people who function best when they are destroying each other, and the world pays premium prices to watch the demolition. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? The 1966 film where you and Burton play a married couple who spend one drunken night emotionally eviscerating each other grosses $33 million and wins you your second Academy Award. The reviews say you've never been more authentic. Of course you haven't. You're not acting, you're filing a tax return. Burton dies in 1984, cerebral hemorrhage, he's 58. His liver is a geological event. In his personal notebook found after his death, he wrote about you. I might run from her for 1,000 years and she is still my baby child. Our love is so furious that we burn each other out. The market value of that sentence, incalculable. The cost of earning it, everything you had. July 25, 1985. Your friend Rock Hudson appears at a press conference with Doris Day. He looks like a man being slowly erased, gaunt, gray, trembling. 6 weeks later, he's dead. AIDS? He's the first major celebrity to die publicly of the disease, and the word publicly is doing heavy lifting in that sentence because thousands of men have already died, quietly, shamefully, in hospitals where the nurses wore hazmat suits to change their bed sheets. You attend Hudson's memorial, and something happens that no market analyst, no studio executive, no tabloid editor could have predicted. You get angry, not sad, not charitable. Angry. The kind of anger that reorganizes a personality. You've spent 43 years being a product, manufactured, and now you're looking at a disease that is killing people because the government won't fund research, because the public considers it a moral judgment, because Ronald Reagan, the president, the former actor, the man who came up through the same Hollywood system you did, won't even say the word AIDS in public until 1987. So you say it, loudly, repeatedly, to anyone with a checkbook and a conscience. In 1985, you co-found AMFAR, the American Foundation for AIDS Research. You don't just lend your name, you call senators personally. You bully pharmaceutical executives into donating drug trial funding. You show up at congressional hearings wearing the Krupp diamond and a look that says, "You will fund this research or I will make your next election cycle unbearable." In 1991, you established the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Over the next 20 years, it raises $270 million. Not for yourself, not for a product, for people who are dying because the market has decided their lives are not worth the cost of intervention. Here's the twist nobody talks about. Your entire life, your suffering increased your market value. Every divorce, every illness, every scandal made you more expensive. The AIDS work inverts the equation. For the first time, you're spending your market value, your fame, your connections, your ability to make powerful people uncomfortable at dinner parties on someone else's survival. The return on investment is zero. The cost to you is real. Political enemies, social backlash, the permanent association of your name with a disease that polite America would rather not discuss. And you do it anyway, for 26 years, without stopping, without softening the message, without letting anyone, a senator, a president, a studio head, change the subject. $270 million. It's the only number on the invoice that you chose to write yourself. March 23, 2011. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Los Angeles. You are 79 years old. Your body is an archaeological site of everything that was ever done to it, and everything you did to it in return. A broken back from a fall on the set of National Velvet when you were 12, the horse threw you, the studio made you finish the scene. Scoliosis that was never properly treated because the studio doctor said you were fine, and the studio doctor worked for the studio, not for you. More than 30 orthopedic surgeries, 2 hip replacements, the tracheotomy scar, skin cancer, a benign brain tumor, congestive heart failure, 6 weeks in rehab at the Betty Ford Center, twice. Your body is not a body, it's a balance sheet. Every injury has a corresponding line item. Every scar has a corresponding film, a corresponding husband, a corresponding magazine cover. You can track the history of American entertainment across your skeleton like rings in a tree trunk. You die at 1:28 a.m. Congestive heart failure. Your family is present. No cameras are allowed. For the first time in 69 years, a moment of Elizabeth Taylor's life has no commercial value. No photograph, no footage, no interview, no appraisal. Your funeral follows your instructions. You arrive 15 minutes late. Not a metaphor. You left specific instructions to delay the start of the ceremony by 15 minutes. Because Elizabeth Taylor was late to everything, and death is not a sufficient reason to change policy. You are buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, the same cemetery where your friend Michael Jackson is buried. The same cemetery where Clark Gable, Jean Harlow, and Walt Disney are buried. The same cemetery that is, itself, a monument to the Hollywood principle that even death is a managed event with a price of admission. Your jewelry collection is auctioned by Christie's in December 2011. It sells for $156 million, the most ever paid for a private collection at auction. The Krupp diamond goes for $8.8 million. The Taylor Burton diamond was already sold in 1979. You sold it yourself, during the Warner years, when you needed to fund a life that didn't revolve around a man who bought you things. La Peregrina sells for $11.8 million. The buyer is anonymous. The items are scattered, the ledger is closed. Here's what the spreadsheet looks like when you're done. 8 marriages, 7 husbands, 2 Oscars, 65 films, over 30 surgeries, 2 rounds of rehab, 1 emergency tracheotomy, 1 death and resurrection on an operating table in London, 4 children, 10 grandchildren, 1 AIDS foundation that saved more lives than any film you ever made, 1 brain tumor, 1 broken back at 12, 69 years in front of a camera, 1 funeral where the cameras were finally turned off, and the thesis of your life, the thing that the price tags were always trying to measure and always failing to capture, is this: you were manufactured. You were assembled on a studio lot at age 10 by people who saw a genetic anomaly, violet eyes, double eyelashes, a bone structure that bends light, and decided it was a product. They put you on the line, they gave you a number, they ran you through quality control, and for the next 7 decades, the world treated you exactly as the factory intended, as something to be purchased, displayed, used, damaged, repaired, resold, and eventually discontinued. But you did something the factory never accounted for. You set your own price. When they said you were worth $100 a week, you proved you were worth $1 million. When they said your career was over, you came back with an Oscar and a scar on your throat. When they said your love life was a scandal, you turned the scandal into the most profitable franchise in Hollywood history. When they said you were finished, too old, too heavy, too many marriages, too many pills, you walked into Congress and made senators write checks for dying men that their own government had abandoned. Every price they put on you was wrong. Not because they overvalued you, because they were measuring the wrong thing. They measured your face, your body, your marriages, your addictions, your illnesses, your tabloid value. They never measured the one thing that actually mattered: your refusal to be worth what they said you were worth. You are Elizabeth Taylor, the most expensive woman on earth. And the invoice, the real one, the one that matters, was never about what they paid for you. It was about what you cost them when you stopped cooperating. That's the number they could never calculate. If you're still here, you already understand the difference between a price and a value. Subscribe before the algorithm puts you back on the assembly line.